Our marriage is over, but that's not what I heard. What I heard was laughter, a sound that used to bring me joy. Now it was a sledgehammer to my chest. I stood frozen in the kitchen doorway, my work boots still caked in mud from the construction site, my lunchbox dangling from my fingertips. The thin kitchen wall wasn't enough to block out the sounds of my wife, Melissa, and our 17-year-old daughter, Kay, giggling. "Mom, you're so bad," Kay said, her voice full of admiration. "3 different guys? How do you even keep track?" "Honey, variety is the spice of life," Melissa replied, and I could practically hear her, shrugging. "Your father's been the same boring man for 18 years. Sometimes a woman needs to sample other flavors." My lunchbox hit the floor with a metallic crash. "Besides," Melissa continued, completely oblivious, "Dean has that confidence your dad never had. Victor knows how to make a woman feel alive, and Tommy from the gym, well, let's just say he's got stamina." I pressed my back against the wall, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. 18 years of marriage. 18 years of working 2 jobs to keep this family afloat while Melissa stayed home, claiming she was finding herself. "What if Dad finds out?" Kay asked. "Your father?" Melissa laughed, a sound that used to make me smile but now felt like broken glass. "Nathan's too weak to do anything about it. He'll just sulk and work harder like he always does." That was all I needed to hear. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my keys and headed out the door. I needed air, space, time to think. 3 hours later, I sat in my truck outside our suburban home, watching the neighborhood I had helped build with my own 2 hands. Dean Callahan lived 2 houses down. The Ruiz family lived across the street. I had installed their kitchen cabinets, fixed their plumbing, even helped them move furniture, and now they were sleeping with my wife. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Nathan, we need to talk. Amanda Callahan." I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed, "When?" "Now." I met Amanda at a coffee shop on Maple Street. Her usually perfect blonde hair was disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed. Without a word, she pushed a manila folder across the table. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside were photographs. Melissa and Dean in our bed, Melissa and Victor in their hot tub, Melissa and some guy I didn't recognize in a hotel room. There was also a flash drive. "Video?" I asked. Amanda nodded. "Dean thought he was being clever, filming everything. I found his little collection last week." I closed the folder, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. "How long have you known?" 6 months, maybe longer." Her voice was bitter. I kept hoping it would stop, thinking Dean would come to his senses. "And the others?" "Shauna Ruiz found out yesterday. She's filing for divorce. The gym guy's wife doesn't know yet, but she will." I looked at Amanda. Really looked at her. She was attractive, well-dressed, the kind of woman who'd never worked a day of manual labor in her life. But right now, she looked as broken as I felt. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "I want them to pay," she said quietly. "All of them. Your wife ruined 4 homes, Nathan. It's time to answer for that." I stood up, tucking the folder under my arm. "I'll be in touch." As I walked to my truck, I felt something shift inside me. The old Nathan who had walked into that coffee shop was gone. In his place was someone harder, someone who understood that nice guys don't just finish last, they get humiliated, betrayed, and discarded. But not this time. The next morning, I called in sick to both my jobs and drove downtown to the law office of Brennan and Associates. "Mr. Briggs," the receptionist said, "Mr. Brennan will see you now." James Brennan was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with a sharp suit that screamed expensive education. But his handshake was firm, and his eyes were calculating. "I understand you need asset protection," he said, settling behind his desk. "My wife's been cheating with multiple partners. I need to make sure she can't take half of everything I've built." Brennan leaned forward. "How long has this been going on?" "At least 6 months that I know of." "Probably longer." "Good. That gives us plenty of grounds. In this state, infidelity affects alimony. We can also pursue alienation of affection claims against the other parties." I handed him the folder Amanda had given me. Brennan's eyebrows rose as he flipped through the contents. This is solid evidence, he said. Very solid. My assistant Carla will help you set up an LLC today. We'll transfer your assets there before filing. Your wife won't see it coming. Carla turned out to be a sharp brunette with green eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. She had me sign papers, set up bank accounts, and transfer funds with military efficiency. You're being smart about this, she said as we finished. Most men in your situation just react emotionally. I'm done reacting, I said. Time to act. That evening, I found Kay in her room scrolling through her phone. I knocked on the door frame. Can we talk? She looked up, surprised. Sure, Dad. What's up? I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. I know about your mother. Her face went pale. Dad, I'm not angry at you, I said. But I need you to understand something. What your mother is doing isn't empowerment or liberation. It's betrayal, and it has consequences. Kay's eyes filled with tears. She said you wouldn't care, that you were too weak to... I raised a daughter, I interrupted, quietly. Not a groupie. Don't let her poison you against the idea of loyalty. I stood to leave, then paused at the door. I love you, Kay, but I won't pretend this family isn't broken. Melissa came home an hour later, humming to herself as she sat down her purse. She was glowing the way she used to after we'd made love early in our marriage. Hey, babe, she said, kissing my cheek. How was work? Fine, I said, not looking up from my laptop. How was your day? Oh, errands. Coffee with the girls. Girls, right, Melissa? I said, closing the laptop. We need to talk. Something in my tone made her freeze. About what? I know. The color drained from her face. For a moment, just a moment, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. Then her expression hardened. Know what, exactly? Everything. Dean, Victor, the gym guy, all of it. She stood there for a long moment, then shrugged. So what are you going to do about it? The casualness of her response hit me like a physical blow. No denial, no apology, no shame. We'll see, I said. The next morning, Melissa decided to throw a barbecue. Neighborhood get-together, she announced, as if nothing had happened. This Saturday. I already invited everyone, including Dean and Amanda, including Victor and Shauna. I watched her make the calls, her voice bright and cheerful, playing the perfect suburban hostess. She had no idea what was coming. Saturday arrived with perfect weather, our backyard filled with neighbors. Melissa was in her element, wearing a sundress that showed off her figure, flirting shamelessly with Dean while his wife stood 10 feet away. That's when Amanda made her move. Melissa, she called out, her voice carrying across the yard. I need to talk to you. The conversation volume dropped as people sensed tension. Melissa turned, still smiling. Of course, Amanda. What about? About you screwing my husband. Dead silence. Even the kids stopped splashing in the high pool. Melissa's smile never wavered. I have no idea what you're talking about. Really? Amanda reached into her purse and pulled out an 8x10 photograph. Because this looks exactly like you. She held up the image. Melissa and Dean in our master bedroom, both naked. Dean's face was clearly visible. Melissa lunged for the photo, but Amanda was ready. She sidestepped and grabbed Melissa by the hair, dragging her down to the grass. They rolled across the lawn, Amanda screaming, "You home-wrecking slut!" while Melissa tried to claw at her face. I made no move to intervene. Neither did Dean, who stood frozen with a beer in his hand. The other guests backed away, some pulling out phones to record. Finally, Victor and another neighbor pulled them apart. Amanda's white blouse was grass-stained, and Melissa's perfect hair was a tangled mess. This isn't over, Amanda said, smoothing down her clothes. Not even close. She walked out, leaving behind a yard full of shocked neighbors and one very exposed wife. The party died quickly after that. I woke up Monday morning to Melissa screaming, "Nathan, Nathan, get out here!" I found her in our driveway, mouth hanging open, staring down the street. Following her gaze, I saw what had gotten her attention. 2 blocks away, a massive billboard stood. the kind they usually used for car dealerships, but this one had a different message. In 6-foot-tall red letters, Melissa Briggs, home wrecker and community property. Below that, in smaller text, ask her about Dean, Victor, and Tommy. Their wives already know. "Oh my God," Melissa whispered. "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." Cars were already slowing down to read it. Our neighbor across the street stood in his bathrobe, shading his eyes to get a better look. Someone was taking pictures. "Who did this?" Melissa spun around to face me. "Nathan, who did this? How would I know? You had to have, someone had to." She was hyperventilating now, her face red with rage and humiliation. "This is illegal. This is slander." "Is it?" I asked calmly. "Which part isn't true?" She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. In 18 years, I'd never spoken to her like that. "You need to fix this," she said. "Right now. Call someone. Call the city. Call—" "I'm going to work," I said, walking past her toward my truck. "Nathan," she screamed, "you can't just leave me here." I could, and I did. At the construction site, word had already spread. Gary, my foreman, clapped me on the shoulder. "Saw the news, buddy. That's rough." "What news?" He showed me his phone. The billboard. Photo was already trending on social media. Melissa Briggs was picking up steam with hundreds of comments and shares. By lunch, it had hit the local news websites. Suburban billboard scandal rocks local neighborhood. Someone had dug up more photos from the barbecue fight. Amanda was giving an interview about rampant adultery destroying families. I called Carla from my truck. "Did you see it?" she asked without preamble. "The billboard. Kind of hard to miss. Not just that. Check your email." I opened my phone and found a message from an anonymous account. Subject line, Phase 1 complete. Inside was a single line. "How do you like the view?" "Any idea who's behind this?" I asked. "I have some theories," Carla said. "But honestly, does it matter? Someone's doing the work. For us." That evening, I found Melissa huddled on the couch, curtains drawn, tissues scattered around her like snow. She'd been crying for hours. "The school called," she said without looking up. "Parents are complaining. They want Kay off the cheerleading squad." "What did you tell them?" "What could I tell them?" She finally looked at me, her eyes puffy and desperate. "Nathan, you have to help me. Please, I'll do anything. Anything?" "Yes. I'll stop. I'll never see any of them again. We can go to counseling. We can move away. Just please, make this stop." I sat down across from her, studying her face. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "The time for stopping was 6 months ago," I said. "Before you decided I was too weak to matter." Her expression shifted, hope fading into something colder. "So this is revenge. You're punishing me." "I'm not doing anything, Melissa. I'm just not protecting you anymore." That night, I moved into the guest room. In the morning, I'd be calling a realtor about apartments. But first, I had some people to thank. I drove to Amanda's house and knocked on the door. She answered in a bathrobe, her hair wet from the shower. "Nathan, I wondered when you'd come by." "The billboard? That was you?" She smiled, and for the first time since this started, it reached her eyes. "My sister Grace owns a sign company in Memphis. She drove up yesterday with a crew and some very flexible ethics." "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. We're just getting started." Behind her, I heard a man's voice. "Who is it, honey?" "Just a neighbor," Amanda called back. To me, she said quietly, "Grace is staying for a few days. She's got ideas." As I walked back to my truck, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not the naive hope of the old Nathan who believed in fairness and playing by the rules. This was darker, hungrier. This was the hope of watching your enemies destroy themselves. The next morning, I met with Brennan to finalize the paperwork. All our joint assets were now protected in the LLC. Our savings accounts had been transferred to new banks Melissa didn't know about. The house, which was in both our names, would be sold and the proceeds split, but everything else was locked, down tight. "She's going to fight this," Brennan warned as I signed the last document. "Let her try." "Nathan, I need to ask, are you planning anything extra legal?" I looked at him across the mahogany desk. I'm a construction worker, Mr. Brennan. I build things. I don't break them. Good. Because if this goes to court, we need your hands completely clean. When I got home, Melissa was waiting with a stack of papers and a pen. I tried to access our accounts, she said. They're frozen. Moved, I corrected, into asset protection. You can't do that. Those are my accounts too. Were, past tense. Her face went through several colors before settling on purple. You bastard, you planned this. I protected myself. There's a difference. I'll sue you. I'll take you for everything. With what money? Your lawyer fees just went up considerably. She threw the papers at me, pages scattering across the kitchen floor. This is financial abuse. This is consequence, I said, bending, to pick up the documents. Something you should have considered before broadcasting your bed life to our daughter. That stopped her cold. What? I heard you, Melissa. Both of you. Laughing about how weak I am. How I'm too pathetic to matter. For the first time since this started, she looked genuinely shaken. Nathan, Save it. The divorce papers will be served tomorrow. I left her standing in the kitchen and drove to work. On the way, my phone rang. Carla, she said. Turn on Channel 7. I pulled over and found a live stream on my phone. A reporter stood in front of the billboard interviewing Amanda. Mrs. Callahan, what drove you to take such a public approach? When someone destroys multiple, families, the community has a right to know, Amanda said, looking directly into the camera. Melissa Briggs conducted affairs with at least 4 married men in our neighborhood. She bragged about it. She corrupted her own teenage daughter with this behavior. Have you spoken to Mrs. Briggs about this? We had a conversation at her barbecue this weekend. It was illuminating. The reporter cut to amateur video of Amanda dragging Melissa across the lawn while neighbors watched. My phone buzzed, with a text from an unknown number. Enjoying the show? G. Grace, Amanda's sister. I typed back, just getting started. The response came immediately. Good. Meet me at Murphy's Bar tonight, 8 p.m. We need to discuss phase 2. At work, I couldn't concentrate. My mind kept wandering to what phase 2 might involve. Whatever it was, Grace clearly had resources and a creative approach to problem solving. Gary found me staring at a blueprint upside down. You okay? Man, I know this whole thing with your wife. Ex-wife, I corrected. And yeah, I'm better than okay. That evening, Murphy's Bar was nearly empty. Grace sat in a corner booth and I recognized her immediately. She looked like Amanda, but harder around the edges. You must be Nathan, she said as I slid into the booth. Amanda's told me a lot about you. Thanks for the billboard. That was just a warm-up. Grace signaled the bartender for another beer. Tell me, how far are you willing to go? Legally? As far as it takes? Good answer, because what I'm thinking will require some creativity. She pulled out a tablet and showed me Melissa's Facebook page. It looked like a battlefield. Hundreds of comments, most of them variations of homewrecker. Someone's been busy spreading the news, Grace said with a grin. You? Me, and about 50 friends with accounts. Amazing how fast word travels when you know the right people. I scrolled through the comments. Some were from our neighbors, others from people I didn't recognize, but all of them were brutal. This is just social media, Grace continued. But what if we took it further? What if Melissa's co-workers knew? Her church? Her book club? How? Grace's smile turned predatory. Leave that to me. The next day, Melissa was served with divorce papers at the grocery store. The process server found her in the cereal aisle. She called me immediately. Nathan, we need to talk face to face. We're done talking. Please, I'm begging you. This has gone too far. Has it? Because from where I'm sitting, it's just getting started. I hung up and went back to work. That afternoon, Carla called with an update. Shauna Ruiz filed her papers this morning. She's going after Victor for everything. Also, Amanda retained our firm to handle her divorce. How many affairs is that now? 4 marriages destroyed, maybe more. Your wife was a busy woman. That evening, I drove past my old house and saw Melissa's car. The billboard was still visible from the street, lit up like a beacon. My phone buzzed, another anonymous text. Check Channel 7 10-hour news. I found a sports bar and waited. When the news came on, I nearly choked on my beer. The lead story was about the Maple Street adultery scandal. They'd interviewed Shauna Ruiz, who was happy to, discuss her husband's infidelity. They'd spoken to other neighbors who expressed shock and disgust. And they'd found Pastor Williams from Melissa's church, who confirmed her membership was under review. But the coup de grace was the final interview. "I'm Mrs. Henderson, Melissa Briggs's supervisor," a woman I didn't recognize said, standing outside an office building. "Mrs. Briggs has been placed on administrative leave pending an internal investigation. We take moral character very seriously at our firm." I stared at the screen. Melissa worked for a conservative accounting firm. Her boss was a 60-year-old Christian woman who'd fire someone for drinking too much at the company Christmas party. Melissa was done. My phone rang. "Grace? Enjoying the show? How did you—" "I told you I know people. Mrs. Henderson's daughter goes to my niece's school. Small world, isn't it? Grace, this is justice, Nathan. Sweet, satisfying justice." I couldn't argue with that. Melissa lasted 3 days before she cracked. I was at my new apartment when she started pounding on the door at 11 p.m. "Nathan, open up. I know you're in there." I looked through the peephole. She was still in her pajamas, her hair wild, her face streaked with tears and mascara. "Nathan, please, they fired me. The church kicked me out. Mrs. Patterson won't even look at me at the grocery store." I opened the door, and she rushed past me. "You have to make this stop," she said, grabbing my arm. "Whatever you're paying these people, I'll double it. I'll do anything." "I'm not paying anyone, Melissa. Don't lie to me. The billboard, the news interviews, my boss getting called, that doesn't just happen." I poured myself a glass of water and sat down. Maybe people are just tired of being lied to. This is insane. You're destroying my entire life. "I'm not destroying anything. I'm just not cleaning up your messes anymore." She stared at me like I was speaking a foreign language. In her world, Nathan was supposed to fix things. "What about Kay?" she demanded. "She's getting bullied at school because of this." That got my attention. "What kind of bullying?" "Kids calling her names, saying her mother's a cheating witch. Someone wrote, 'daughter of a whore' on her locker." I felt a stab of genuine anger, but not at who Melissa expected. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to sample other flavors," I said. "Your choices, your consequences." "Nathan, please." She was crying now, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. "I'll change. I'll be better. We can fix this." "We can't fix anything, Melissa, because there is no we anymore." She left, around midnight, but not before screaming at me for 10 more minutes. I watched from my window as she drove away, weaving slightly. The next morning, I got a call from Jeremiah Trent, an old friend from high school. He'd done 2 tours in Afghanistan before coming back to work security. "Nathan, man, I saw the news. You okay?" "Better than okay." "Good. Listen, I'm between jobs right now. If you need any help with anything, let me know." I thought about that offer as I drove to work. Jeremiah was 6'2", 200 pounds of muscle and military training. He'd seen combat, knew how to handle himself, and had always been loyal. "Actually," I said, calling him back, "I might have something for you." We met that evening at a diner. "So what's the situation?" he asked over coffee. I told him everything. The affairs, the humiliation, the divorce, the billboard. He listened without interrupting, his face getting harder with each detail. "She said, what about you being too weak?" he asked when I finished. "That I was too pathetic to matter." Jeremiah was quiet for a long moment. "You know, in the Army we had a saying, 'The quiet ones are the ones you watch out for.' I'm not looking for violence, Jerry. I know. But sometimes people need to understand that their actions have weight, that there are consequences." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. "Voice recorder, military grade, picks up conversations through walls." "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Whatever you need to do. Just remember, sometimes the best weapon is information." That weekend, Melissa had dinner with her sister Claire. Jeremiah followed her to the restaurant and texted me updates. While they ate, I used his spare key to slip into Melissa's house, our old house, and placed the recorder in her bedroom. 2 days later, I had exactly what I needed. Melissa's voice, crystal clear. Claire, you don't understand. Nathan's not the same man I married. He's become this cold, calculating thing. It's actually kind of scary. Claire's response. Maybe you should have thought about that before you cheated on him with half the neighborhood. It wasn't half the neighborhood. God, you're as bad as everyone else. Melissa, you screwed 3 married men. Their wives are devastated. Their children will get over it. Kids are resilient. There was a long pause, then Claire's voice quieter. What happened to you? When did you become so selfish? I'm not selfish. I'm finally living my life instead of being some construction worker's boring wife. Nathan never excited me. He never made me feel alive. So you destroyed 4 families because you were bored. I didn't destroy anything. Everyone's acting like I committed a felony. That recording was gold. I called Grace and sent her the audio file. Within hours, it was everywhere. Social media, neighborhood message boards, even a local radio station played excerpts. The reaction was swift and brutal. Melissa's remaining defenders, the few people who'd believed. Her sob story about being persecuted turned against her overnight. The city council, responding to pressure from constituents, voted to remove the billboard, but the damage was done. Everyone had heard it by then. Better yet, someone had recognized her voice and connected it to her real estate license. Melissa had been trying to keep her part-time realtor job quiet, but now her brokerage was flooded with angry calls. She lost that job too. But the best part came 3 days later when Carla called with news that made my entire week. Nathan, you need to see this. Amanda's divorce attorney just filed a motion for alienation of affection damages against your wife. How much? $400,000. I nearly dropped the phone. Can she collect that with the evidence we have? Absolutely. Photos, videos, recordings, witness testimony. Amanda's lawyer is going for the throat. That evening, I treated myself to dinner at a nice restaurant. As I sat there enjoying a steak and a beer, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about the lawsuit? Well played. G. I typed back, just getting started. The response came immediately. Want to finish this properly? Meet me tomorrow. Same place. I'd been wondering when Phase 3 would begin. Grace was already waiting when I arrived at Murphy's bar the next evening. She had a laptop open and several manila folders spread across the table. Sit down, she said without looking up. We need to talk about Endgame. Endgame? I slid into the booth. Your ex-wife is cornered, but she's not finished. Women like Melissa don't just disappear quietly. They lash out. As if on cue, my phone rang. Melissa's number. Don't answer it, Grace said, but put it on speaker. The call went to voicemail. A few seconds later, my phone chimed with a message notification. I played it back. Melissa's voice was slurred and angry. Nathan, you son of a bitch, I know what you're doing. I know you're behind all of this, but you made one mistake. You forgot about Kay. She's still my daughter and she still loves me. So whatever sick game you're playing, it ends now, or I'll make sure she knows exactly what kind of monster her father really is. Grace raised an eyebrow. See what I mean? She's drunk. She's desperate. And desperate people do stupid things. Grace turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was a Facebook post from Melissa's account, posted an hour ago. To everyone who's been spreading lies about me, you don't know the whole story. My husband, Nathan, is an abusive, controlling man who's been planning this revenge for months. He's hired people to harass me, destroy my reputation, and ruin my life. I have evidence of his criminal conspiracy, and I'm going to the police tomorrow. The post had already collected dozens of comments. She's trying to flip the narrative, Grace said. Make herself the victim. Let her try. No one's going to believe. Some people will believe it, and that's all she needs. A few sympathetic voices, maybe a lawyer who sees dollar signs. She could turn this around. So what do you suggest? Grace closed the laptop and leaned forward. We finish this completely. No comeback, no second chances, no redemption arc. What did you have in mind? Have you ever heard of a controlled demolition? The next morning, I called in sick to work and met with Jeremiah near the courthouse. He looked tired. You okay? I asked. Been keeping an eye on your ex-wife like you asked. She's unraveling, man. Yesterday, she tried to confront Amanda at the grocery store, started screaming about conspiracies and lawsuits. What happened? Security escorted her out. But Nathan, she's getting erratic, dangerous. Dangerous how? Jerry pulled out his phone and showed me a video. Melissa standing in her old driveway, holding a baseball bat. She smashed Dean's car windows last night. Then she stood there yelling about being betrayed and destroyed. I watched the video again. Melissa looked wild. Did anyone call the cops? Dean did, but she was gone by the time they arrived. Where is she now? That's the problem. I don't know. She didn't come home last night. My phone rang. Kay. Her voice was small, scared. Dad, Mom's here at school. She's causing a scene. What kind of scene? She's in the principal's office screaming about how you've turned everyone against her. Dad, she looks really bad. Like really bad. I'll be right there. I drove to the high school with Jerry following in his truck. We found Melissa's car parked sideways across 2 spaces, the driver's side door hanging open. Inside, we could hear shouting from the administrative offices. She has no right! Melissa's voice carried down the hallway. You people are punishing my daughter for my personal life. I found Kay sitting on a bench, her head in her hands. She looked up when she saw me. Dad, thank God. She's been here for an hour. They called security, but she won't leave. Through the office window, I could see Melissa pacing, gesticulating wildly. What set her off? I asked. Some kids were talking about the lawsuit, about the $400,000. She overheard and just snapped. The office door opened, and Melissa stormed out. She stopped short when she saw me. You, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. This is all you. Melissa, you need to go home. Home? She laughed, a sound with no humor in it. What home? The one you stole from me? The one where I can't show my face without being called a whore? People were staring. Now, Mom, please, Kay said, standing up. You're embarrassing me. Embarrassing you? Melissa spun around to face her daughter. I'm embarrassing you? What about your father? What about the man who's been systematically destroying my life for sport? That's enough, I said, stepping forward. Is it? Melissa's eyes were wild. Because I'm just getting started. You want to play games, Nathan? Fine, let's play. She pulled out her phone and started recording. Everyone here needs to know the truth about Nathan Briggs. He's not the poor, betrayed husband everyone thinks he is. He's a sociopathic control freak who's been planning this revenge for months. Ma'am, you need to leave, Principal Morrison said, appearing in the doorway, or I'll have to call the police. Call them. Call them and ask about the restraining order I'm filing. Ask about the evidence I have of his harassment campaign. Jerry moved closer, positioning himself between Melissa and the growing crowd. Melissa, I said quietly, you're having a breakdown. Let me drive you somewhere safe. Safe? She barked another laugh. Safe from you? There is no safe from you, is there, Nathan? You won't stop until I'm completely destroyed. You destroyed yourself, I said. I just stopped cleaning up the mess. Something shifted in her expression. The wild anger gave way to something colder, more calculating. We'll see about that, she said, then louder. Kay, you're coming with me. No, Kay said firmly. I'm not. You're my daughter, and you're embarrassing us both. Dad's right. You did this to yourself. Melissa stared at her daughter for a long moment, then at me. You turned my own daughter against me. I didn't have to, I said. She has eyes. Melissa left then, pushing past the crowd and storming to the parking lot. Through the windows, we watched her get in her car and drive away, tires squealing. That woman needs help, Principal Morrison said. Yes, I agreed. She does, but I wasn't going to be the one to give it to her. That evening, I got a call from Amanda. Nathan, we have a problem. Melissa just showed up at my house. What did she want? To talk, but she had a crowbar. I was already reaching for my keys. Are you okay? I'm fine. She didn't get in, but Nathan, she's completely lost it. She kept screaming about conspiracies and revenge plots. The neighbors called the police. Where is she now? They arrested her, attempted breaking and entering, plus she was drunk. But here's the thing. She's out on bail already. How is that possible? Her sister posted bond. And Nathan, she hired a lawyer. A real one. Someone who specializes in harassment cases. I felt a chill run down my spine. What kind of harassment cases? The kind where ex-husbands orchestrate campaigns to destroy their wives. She's claiming you're behind everything. The billboard, the social media attacks, the job losses, all of it. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because from the outside, it does look coordinated. And if a jury decides you've been pulling strings... She didn't need to finish. I could lose everything. What do I do? Lay low. Don't contact her. Don't respond to anything she posts online. Don't even think about her. And Nathan, whatever friends have been helping you, maybe it's time to distance yourself from them. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment staring at the wall. 3 months ago, I'd been a simple man with a simple life. Now, I was in the middle of a war I wasn't sure I could win. My phone buzzed. Grace, heard about the arrest. We need to meet. I don't think that's a good idea. Trust me, it's necessary. An hour later, I found myself back at Murphy's bar, but this time, Grace wasn't alone. Amanda was there along with 2 women I didn't recognize. Nathan, meet my friends, Grace said. Sarah and Beth. They've been following your situation with interest. Why? Because we've all been where you are, Sarah said. Betrayed, humiliated, left with nothing while the cheater plays victim. My ex-husband, Beth added, cleaned out our accounts and ran off with his secretary, then had the nerve to sue me for harassment when I tried to get my money back. What does this have to do with me? Grace leaned forward. Melissa's lawyer is good. He specializes in turning cheating wives into sympathetic victims. He's going to claim you orchestrated a conspiracy to destroy her. I didn't orchestrate anything. Doesn't matter. Perception is reality. And right now, the perception is that a lot of bad things happened to your wife in a very short time frame. Amanda spoke up. The billboard company is saying they were paid in cash by a woman matching my description, but I was never there. Someone impersonated you? Someone who looked enough like me to fool a security camera. Professional job. I stared at the 4 women around the table. Who are you people? Grace smiled. We're women who got tired of watching cheaters win, so we decided to level the playing field. You're vigilantes. We're problem solvers, Sarah corrected. And right now, your problem is that Melissa's about to turn this whole thing around on you. Unless, Beth said, we finish this properly. What does that mean? Grace pulled out a tablet and showed me a document. Melissa's been in contact with a reporter from Channel 7. Tomorrow night, she's doing an exclusive interview. Local woman claims ex-husband orchestrated harassment campaign. She can't prove anything. She doesn't have to. She just has to be sympathetic enough that people start asking questions. I looked around at the women who'd inserted themselves into my life. What do you want from me? Permission, Grace said simply. For what? To end this. The next day dragged by. I went through the motions at work, but my mind was elsewhere. At lunch, Jeremiah called. Nathan, you need to see this. He sent me a link to Melissa's Facebook page. She'd posted a long, rambling message about being the victim of a coordinated attack by my vindictive ex-husband and his accomplices. The post was already being shared with dozens of supportive comments. She's building a narrative, Jerry said when I called him back. Yeah, I know. There's something else. She's been asking around about me, wanting to know. Who hired me to follow her? What did you tell people? Nothing. But Nathan, if she finds out we've been working together... I know. That evening, I sat in my apartment watching the clock tick toward 10 p.m. Channel 7's evening news would lead with Melissa's interview. At 9:45, my phone rang. Grace, she said, turn on Channel 7. I don't want to watch this. Trust me, you want to watch this. I found the channel just as the news was starting. The anchor shuffled her papers and looked into the camera. Good evening. We begin tonight with breaking news in the ongoing adultery scandal that has rocked the Maple Street neighborhood. Melissa Briggs, the woman at the center of the controversy, was scheduled to give an exclusive interview tonight. However, those plans have changed following new developments. The screen cut to footage of police cars and ambulances outside a hotel downtown. Earlier this evening, Mrs. Briggs was found unconscious in a hotel room, apparently from an overdose of prescription medication. She was rushed to Memorial Hospital, where she remains in stable condition. I nearly dropped the phone. The apparent suicide attempt comes just hours before Mrs. Briggs was scheduled to appear on this program to discuss her claims that she has been the victim of a harassment campaign orchestrated by her ex-husband. The anchor continued, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was thinking about Grace's words. Permission to end this. Grace, I said into the phone, what did you do? Nothing illegal, she replied. Sometimes people just break down under pressure. You drugged her. I visited her, had a conversation, suggested that maybe given all the evidence against her, it might be better if she just disappeared from the narrative. Jesus Christ. She'll be fine, Nathan. A few days in the hospital, some counseling, and she'll realize that her best option is to quietly accept the divorce terms and move on with her life. And if she doesn't? Grace's voice was quiet, almost gentle. Then we'll have another conversation. I hung up and sat in the dark, trying to process what had just happened. Melissa was alive, but barely. And somehow, I was responsible. The war was over, but looking around my empty apartment, I wasn't sure who had won. Melissa spent 3 days in the hospital. I didn't visit, but Kay did, coming back each time looking more tired and older than a 17-year-old should. How is she? I asked after her second visit. Broken, Kay said simply. She keeps asking if you're behind what happened to her. What do you tell her? I tell her the truth, that she did this to herself. On the 4th day, Melissa was released to her sister Claire's custody. The exclusive interview was quietly canceled, and Channel 7 ran a brief follow-up about the importance of mental health awareness. But the damage was done. The suicide attempt had shifted public opinion. Suddenly, Melissa wasn't the homewrecker from the billboard. She was a troubled woman who'd been driven to desperate measures. People are starting to ask questions, Carla warned me during a meeting, about whether the response was proportional to the crime. She destroyed 4 marriages, I said. Yes, but did she deserve to end up in a psychiatric ward? Brennan leaned forward. Nathan, I need to ask you directly. Did you have any involvement in what happened at that hotel? No. It wasn't entirely true, but it wasn't entirely false either. I hadn't drugged Melissa, but I had given Grace permission to finish this. Whether that made me responsible was a question I didn't want to examine too closely. Good, Brennan said, because Melissa's new lawyer is sniffing around looking for evidence of conspiracy or harassment. So far, he's got nothing solid, but you need to be careful. You need to be invisible. No contact with your ex-wife, no social media posts, no victory laps. This case still has to go through the courts, and we can't afford to give them ammunition. That evening, I met Jeremiah at the diner where this had all started. He looked as tired as I felt. This is getting complicated, he said over coffee. Maybe it's time to step back. What do you mean? I mean, people are asking questions about us, about why a construction worker suddenly has military-grade surveillance equipment and professional-level intelligence gathering. He was right. In my anger, I had accepted help from people I didn't really know. Jerry? Did I do the right thing? He was quiet for a long moment. You did what you felt you had to do. But Nathan, there's a difference between justice and revenge, and sometimes that line gets blurrier than we'd like. A week later, Amanda called with news that should have felt like victory. It's over, she said. Melissa signed the divorce papers. No contest, no appeals. She gets the house and her personal belongings. You get everything else. What about the alienation of affection lawsuit? Settled. She can't pay the full amount, obviously, but she's agreed to monthly payments for the next 10 years. Plus, she signed a non-disclosure agreement. It dies here. I should have felt relieved, vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. There's something else, Amanda continued. She's leaving town, moving to Colorado to live with some cousin. Fresh start, all that. Good for her. Is it though, Nathan? I know what she did was terrible, but sometimes I wonder if we went too far. Did we? Or did consequences just finally catch up with her? Amanda sighed. I don't know anymore. I used to be so angry. But seeing her in that hospital, she's alive, Amanda. Her victims are the ones who have to rebuild their lives. I know. I thought revenge would feel different. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment looking around at my new life. Clean, quiet, ordered. Everything I thought I wanted, but something was missing. 2 weeks later, I was back at work when Gary, my foreman, pulled me aside. Nathan, there's something I need to tell you. The company's been getting calls, people asking questions about you, about whether you've been harassing your ex-wife. I felt my stomach drop. What kind of people? Reporters mostly, but also some lawyer asking about your work schedule, whether you've been taking unexplained time off. What? Did you tell them? The truth. That you're a good worker who's been going through a rough divorce. But Nathan, maybe you should talk to someone. Get ahead of this before it gets worse. That afternoon, I called Brennan's office. Carla answered, Nathan, thank God you called. We need to meet now. An hour later, I was sitting across from Brennan and Carla, feeling like a defendant instead of a client. Melissa's lawyer has filed a motion, Brennan said, sliding a document across the desk. He's claiming the original divorce settlement was signed under duress, and he wants it overturned. On what grounds? Psychological torture, orchestrated harassment, conspiracy to deprive her of income and reputation. I scanned the document, seeing words like systematic campaign and coordinated assault and extreme emotional distress. Can he prove any of this? That's the problem, Carla said. Some of it might be provable. The timing of everything, the billboard, the job losses, the social media attacks. It all happened very quickly. A good lawyer could make that look coordinated. But I didn't coordinate anything. Didn't you? Brennan's voice was sharp. Nathan, I need you to think very carefully. Did you have any contact with the people who put up that billboard? Did you share information with anyone who might have used it to contact her employers? Did you discuss strategy with friends or family members? I thought about Grace and her team, about Amanda's sister with the sign company, about Jeremiah's military-grade surveillance equipment. I may have accepted help from some people. What kind of help? The kind I probably shouldn't discuss with my lawyer. Brennan closed his eyes and rubbed his temples. Nathan, if there's evidence of a conspiracy, even an informal one, you could lose everything. The assets, the favorable divorce terms, maybe even face criminal charges. What do I do? You disappear, take a vacation, visit family out of state. Anything to get out of town while we handle this. For how long? However long it takes. That night I packed a bag and drove east toward the mountains. I needed space to think, to figure out how a simple man's desire for justice had turned into something so complicated. But as I drove, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was running from something I'd helped create. I'd been gone for 2 weeks when Jeremiah called. Nathan, you need to get back here now. What's wrong? It's Melissa. She's back in town, and she's not alone. I was 3 hours away in a cabin. What do you mean, not alone? She's got some guy with her. Big guy. Looks like muscle. And Nathan, they've been asking around about where you live. What kind of asking? The kind that makes people nervous. They went to your old job site, your apartment building, even talked to some of your neighbors. I was all ready, throwing clothes into a bag. Are you sure it's her? Positive. Saw her myself at that coffee shop on Maple Street. She looks different, though. Harder. Like she's been through hell and came out the other side. I'll be back. Tonight. Nathan, maybe you should stay away. Let the lawyers handle this. No, I'm done running. The drive back felt longer than it actually was. Every mile I thought about what I'd find when I got home. Part of me had hoped Melissa would just disappear, start over somewhere else. But I should have known better. Women like Melissa don't disappear quietly. I reached my apartment building just after midnight. The parking lot was empty except for my neighbor's cars and one I didn't recognize, a black SUV with tinted windows. I parked across the street and called Jeremiah. I'm here. I see the SUV. I'm 5 minutes out. Don't do anything stupid until I get there. But as I sat watching, I saw movement on the 3rd floor. Someone was standing on my apartment balcony. Melissa. Even from this distance, I could see she'd changed. Thinner, sharper, like her time away had burned off everything soft. She stood there for a long moment scanning the lot, then disappeared back inside. Inside my apartment, I checked my gun, a .38 revolver I'd bought after the divorce started. 6 rounds, fully loaded. I'd never fired it at anything but targets. But I'd practiced enough to know I could hit what I aimed at. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Come up. We need to talk. M." Another text immediately after. "Come alone, or this gets uglier than it has to be." Jeremiah's truck turned into the parking lot just as I was getting out of my car. He saw me and flashed his lights once, our agreed signal. I walked to his truck and leaned in the window. "She's up there, in my apartment." "How'd she get in?" "Does it matter, Jerry? If this goes bad..." "It won't. But if it does, I've got your back." "No. If this goes bad, you drive away and forget you ever knew me." I walked toward the building before he could argue. The front door was propped open. Melissa's work. The elevator was waiting, doors open. As I rode up to the 3rd floor, I thought about how this had all started. Me coming home early from work, overhearing my wife and daughter laughing about my weakness. It felt like a lifetime ago. The hallway was empty, but my apartment door was cracked open. Lights spilled out into the corridor. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Melissa was sitting in my armchair, looking relaxed despite the circumstances. She'd lost weight, and her hair was shorter, darker, but it was her eyes that had changed the most. They were cold now, calculating. The big man Jeremiah had mentioned was standing by the window, arms crossed. "Hello, Nathan," Melissa said. "You look good, relaxed." "Melissa, surprised to see me?" "Not really. You always did have trouble letting go." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Funny thing about letting go, sometimes what you're holding on to is all you have left." "What do you want?" "I want my life back." "You threw your life away. I didn't take it from you." "Didn't you?" She stood up, moving with a grace I didn't remember. "The billboard that destroyed my reputation. The social media campaign that cost me my job. The mysterious friends who seemed to know exactly how to hurt me." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please. We both know you're smarter than you pretended to be. The quiet, boring husband who worked 2 jobs and never caused trouble. But that was all an act, wasn't it?" The big man shifted slightly, and I noticed the bulge under his jacket. He was armed. "What I was," I said carefully, "was loyal. Right up until you decided loyalty was weakness." "Loyalty?" Melissa laughed, and the sound made my skin crawl. "You want to talk about loyalty? Let me tell you what I learned in therapy, Nathan. I learned that loyalty without respect is just fear. And you never respected me. I supported you for 18 years. You controlled me for 18 years. Made me dependent on you. Made me feel like I couldn't survive without you. And when I finally tried to live my own life, you destroyed 4 marriages. I took what I wanted." Her voice rose for the first time. "For once in my life, I took what I wanted instead of settling for what you thought I deserved." The big man took a step forward. "Maybe we should..." "No," Melissa said sharply. "Nathan and I need to finish this conversation." She walked over to my kitchen counter and picked up a manila folder thick with documents. "Do you know what this is?" she asked. "Your lawyer's paperwork." "My insurance policy." She opened the folder and pulled out photographs. Pictures of me meeting with Amanda's sister. Audio recordings of Jeremiah discussing surveillance equipment. Bank records showing suspicious cash withdrawals. My heart started pounding harder. "You've been busy," I said. "I've been thorough, the same way you were thorough when you destroyed my life." "Melissa, what happened to you wasn't what? Wasn't coordinated? Wasn't planned?" She spread the photos across my coffee table. "These pictures show you meeting with people who later took actions that harmed me. The timing is very suspicious, don't you think?" I looked at the photographs. Me with Grace at Murphy's bar, me with Jeremiah at the diner, me with Carla outside the law office. "Where did you get these?" "I hired professionals, Nathan. Real ones, not your amateur hour operation." The big man spoke up. "Ma'am, maybe we should wrap this up." "Of course." Melissa collected the photos and put them back in the folder. "Nathan, here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer half of those protected assets back to me. You're going to publicly apologize for the harassment campaign, and you're going to pay for my therapy and living expenses until I get back on my feet. And if I don't, then these photos and recordings go to the police, the media, and your employer, along with a very detailed statement about how you orchestrated a conspiracy to deprive me of my livelihood and reputation. You can't prove I orchestrated anything. I don't have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I just have to make it look credible enough that people start asking questions. How do you think your construction company will feel about employing someone who might be a criminal? How will your new girlfriend Carla feel when she's dragged into a harassment investigation? She was right, and we both knew it. Even if the charges didn't stick, the suspicion would be enough to destroy what I'd built. How much do you want? $200,000, plus the apology. I don't have that kind of cash. You'll find it. You found money for everything else. I thought about my options. Pay her off and hope she'd go away, or fight and risk losing everything anyway. I need time to think about it. You have until tomorrow night. Meet me at the old house, our house, at 8 p.m. Bring a cashier's check. She headed for the door, the big man following. Oh, and Nathan, she said, pausing at the threshold. Come alone. If I see your military friend or any of your other associates, the deal's off and the photos go public immediately. They left, and I stood alone in my apartment staring at the spot where my life had just been threatened. My phone rang. Jeremiah. I saw them leave. You okay? For now. What did she want? Money and an apology. You going to give it to her? I walked to my window and looked down. The black SUV was gone. I don't know yet, I said, but even as I said it, I was already making plans.